to the second Ingenium Staff Academy webinar this spring. And our theme today is artificial intelligence. And we have three very interesting presentations coming up. So my name is Tiina Luukkainen. I work for the Ingenium Staff Academy and also as a senior lecturer in XAMK in Finland. And I have my colleague with me here, Karita, and she's the technical expert in case there are any issues. So our first speaker today is Tim O'Mahony from Ireland, and he will talk about the opportunities and challenges of generative AI in education. And secondly, Aitor Iriondo Pascal from Sweden will demonstrate what becomes possible when teachers and students move from using AI to creating it. And our third speaker comes from our Romanian partner university. Dan Marius Dobrea will discuss robust tracking algorithms for unmanned aerial vehicles. And the presentations will take about 20 minutes. And after that, we will have 10 minutes for comments and questions. And of course, you can write in the chat also during the presentation. But now I would like to give the floor to Jim.
Thank you so much, Tiina. Thanks everyone for coming along this morning and for giving me the opportunity to share some information with you around our experience of generative AI here in Munster Technological University in Ireland. So I'm a biotechnologist by trade, and I've had a strong research career publishing, particularly in the area of biology and public health and better ways of detecting and diagnosing disease. But in the last 5 years or so, I've been working with the teaching and learning unit here in MTU with a very strong influence over generative AI and the impact that it has. And that's allowed me work with a lot of different agencies and groups here in Ireland and internationally as well. So predominantly biologists, now moving into teaching and learning, specifically with a remit to look at generative AI. I'm a big believer and a big passionate advocate of AI, but I'm a more passionate advocate for what I would call human-centered education. And even though we are surrounding our students with technology, and we're going to look at some of that technology this morning, I can't overemphasize the importance and value of making sure that we don't lose sight of human-centered education in all that we do. So technology will help, but what students are going to remember about their education are the educators and not necessarily the technology that we expose them to. And there's been a lot of work done over the last number of years, both nationally and internationally, on providing guidance in this very, very fast changing world, just in relation to our own situation here in Ireland. The Higher Education Authority, which has governance over what we do in the university sector in Ireland, have produced two really strong, robust documents that give us very clear guidance on where they would like us as universities to position generative AI. And there's also, of course, lots of international reports and advice that's available to academics and teachers to try and put a better shape on how we interact with generative AI. In terms of our own HEA, as I say here, they have produced some very robust documents, very clear, full of very good advice and information, built around a number of principles, 5 of which are listed here. And I think everybody would agree that these are 5 good principles to have in any policy or any guidance documents that are given to educators in relation to generative AI, everything from academic integrity to equity, promoting the use of critical engagement, the importance of privacy, the importance of sustainability, and to make sure that those principles are very much front and center in all that we do in education. We do feel, I think, if you're in Europe, anything like we're feeling here in Ireland, that it does feel like we're in a little bit of a whirlwind. And to kind of put that in context, it took Netflix 3.5 years to reach 1 million users. It took Facebook just 10 months, and it's taken ChatGPT just 5 days to reach 1 million users. So that's why I think, to put it in perspective, why we're suddenly been surrounded and consumed by so much AI. It's been a really, really fast adoption over the last 3 years. And some people have quite a lot of fears around generative AI. My feelings around it would be that, yes, we do need to be mindful of it, but from a personal perspective, then we can choose to embrace or not embrace generative AI to whatever level we wish. However, from a professional perspective, I don't think we have any option or anything available to us but to embrace and strongly embrace generative AI, because it is going to transform and is transforming the way in which we work and the way in which our graduates need to be educated. And this is a little graphic that allows us a chance to reflect that we really should be preparing students for their future, not our past. So things that we would have encountered as part of our education maybe 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago is now less relevant than it is for our students who are getting ready for their future, which will very much be shaped by generative AI. And one of the questions that we often get asked in MTU and in a lot of the talks that I give is, should we allow students use AI tools to complete their tasks or their assessments? And our simple philosophy is that if it supports their learning, absolutely yes. Like any tool, we should allow them use the tool if it supports their learning. However, if it replaces their learning, then that would be an absolute no. And part of our job as educators, as we're coming to terms with this new technology, is to try and figure out where the line is. What tools are allowing our students to be supported in their learning, and what tools and ways in which to use those tools is now replacing that learning. Because what we're beginning to realize is that you can now short circuit learning outputs. What I mean by that is the outputs that we would have measured as an indicator of learning, things like essays and projects and producing slide decks and producing journals, they can now all be short circuited using generative AI. So these are now no longer valid indicators of learning, because these are just outputs, and generative AI can do these very, very well. But what you can short circuit is learning, the difficult task of a student grappling with a new concept and building on the knowledge that they already have. And that's what we should really be promoting. And in my opinion, all education that we do should be focused on learning, deep learning, intensive learning. That does, yes, of course, use generative AI, but uses it in a way that you're not short-circuiting the whole learning experience. This is a very detailed slide that I'm going to make available to you afterwards, but this is just our little response to a lot of queries that we get from academics around the use of generative AI, particularly when it comes to assessment. So these are 12 of the most common questions that we've been asked over the last couple of years, and this is our attempt at trying to provide guidance and advice to educators from that perspective. I think we all know what the answer to this question is. What is generative AI? We know it now to be technology that generates new content in so many different forms, from text to images to video to music and code. And as we all know, it has done this by having access to an extensive library of digital training data, has been taken from web pages, online sources, social media, and so on. Basically, everything that humans have created digitally over the last 50 or 60 years is now being used as training data to allow us access to these models that can generate this new content. What I try and do when I'm giving workshops is to make sure that people don't not automatically gravitate towards what is the most popular tool, ChatGPT. There are so many other tools that are available to us. The one that I've been using from from the beginning is Claude, and Claude is now becoming a very viable challenger to ChatGPT as the tool of choice. But for lots of reasons which we don't have to go into, I would strongly recommend people start using Claude over ChatGPT. And there are others here on the screen as well that you can see. I follow a lot of people on LinkedIn who really go deeply into generative AI, and this is from Mark Anderson. And here's just a selection of the kinds of tools that are now available to us as educators that can help us in all sorts of ways. You can see up here from teaching and learning and assessment and accessibility, from curriculum to leadership to ethics and lots as well in between. So just to know and have an awareness that there is now an ever-growing repository of tools that are available to us. And this is a list of over 100 AI tools. If anyone wants to dig a little bit deeper, this kind of resources is really for people who may be on the misguided impression that generative AI is just ChatGPT. It's not. Obviously, there are so many other tools that are available to us. And in your own time, feel free, please, to have a flick through some of the other ones that we have. Just to move on to some of the problems that we're seeing with generative AI, many people are using generative AI in ways that ultimately get them into trouble. And these next few slides give indications of when things go really badly wrong using generative AI, and maybe to look at ways in which to ensure that that doesn't happen. This is a report that came out last year where Deloitte, a very reputable company, had to pay back a substantial amount of money when it came to the public's attention that they had used AI to produce a report. A really embarrassing situation for a very, very reputable company. This is probably less surprising, but in America last year, a really substantial a high-profile report produced on children's health. They had to roll back when it was discovered that a lot of references related to phantom studies that never actually existed. So a lot of the information in that report was hallucinated. And this is probably my favorite example of bad practice. This comes from Canada, where a report was done by the education department in one of the provinces in Canada, pointing the way for best practice for education for the next 10 years. In other words, how we should be developing best practice for education over the course of the next 10 years. And when that report was read, it was found to have at least 15 citations for non-existent journal articles. That's probably as bad as it gets, a Department of Education using AI inappropriately. And what I'm beginning to realize, and what others are beginning to realize, is that when we use AI, these are what I would consider to be the most significant non-negotiables. People get into trouble not for using AI, they get into trouble because they don't employ human oversight. You, the user, are primarily responsible for the work that you create, and saying that it's the fault of AI just isn't going to wash. So we need to be 100% clear that human oversight is needed for absolutely everything produced by generative AI. People get into trouble because they don't realize that they're sharing very sensitive private data, both theirs, maybe their students, their colleagues, without permission. And that again can lead to very, very significant problems for individuals and for organizations. And the other thing which is really important, and what I would consider to be a non-negotiable for us in dealing with AI, is what I would call attribution. People are now, I would imagine, always thinking when a presentation is here, or a report is done, or an email is generated, always in the back of our minds now we're thinking, was that generated by AI? And we need to find ways for visualizing to people that the work was generated by a human or the work was generated by AI. And you might be noticing over the last 10 minutes that at the bottom right-hand corner here, I have a series of icons that I use that for me is my way of communicating to an audience that everything you're seeing up to this point is 100% human generated. I will show you examples as we close out in a few minutes of tools that I've built, and that is again attributed, showing how much input generative AI has had. And this is my little scheme, which you're welcome to use if you wish. Just these little icons indicate a sliding scale of 100% human creation all the way down to 100% AI creation. And by using something like this, it gets you out of jail many, many times if someone is questioning, I wonder, is that human generated or AI generated? And so just a simple tool which can be adapted for people if they wish. For the last 5 or 10 minutes or so, I thought I might show you some of the tools that I've built that might be useful to you. And again, you're more than welcome to use these in your own time. One of the problems that I think a lot of people face is that they don't know how generative AI can help them. So I built a little dashboard here, which you can take in your own time. And basically, as you can see, you just fill in roughly on a weekly basis how much time you spend doing all these various tasks. And I'm just putting in random numbers for now. Obviously, if you were doing this, you would take a little bit more time to make sure that those numbers are representative for what you are doing in your work. But I just want to try and get to 100% here as quickly as I can to show that we can close this out, and we're at 100%. So imagine that this would be a typical week for you. If I create an analysis report, then automatically this tool is telling me in my weekly schedule how AI can help me with administrative tasks, planning, human tasks, teaching relationships, and so on. AI can augment 40% of my work based on the numbers that I put in that from that perspective. And it gives me specific examples of how it can help me with lesson planning, classroom instruction, and administration, assessment and feedback, co-curricular activities, and so on. But what's really interesting is just by what I've done there is it's telling me that it can estimate that I can save between 17.5 and 26.2. In other words, I could get a day back out of my weekly work schedule by using AI effectively. And I think just that little practice of auditing your work through an AI tool like this that I've built will give you an indication of how AI can be helpful to you. Another tool that I built that I thought would be useful is we're using, as I said, so many different tools now, dozens or maybe hundreds of tools. And I built a little platform here that allows us to assess the safety of the tools that we're engaging with. We're maybe a little bit too enthusiastic to click on a tool and use it without actually figuring out, are we okay to use this tool? So even for something as common as ChatGPT, this tool that I built, if I just take the URL of ChatGPT and go into this tool and paste it in, and ask it to do an audit, what it's now doing is it's going through the small print of the terms and conditions on the website of ChatGPT, and it's making an assessment of how safe it is, privacy issues, governance issues, and so on. And it's given me a report that ChatGPT presents, in this case, a medium risk. It gives me a detailed report. It gives me actionable recommendations of things I should do if I want to improve privacy and governance for ChatGPT. And I can put in any tool here that I might want to use, start the audit, and then read the detailed report. It may not be perfect, but it certainly gives you much more insights than we would normally take by just blindly using tools without taking the time to check whether these tools are actually going to be safe, and in terms of privacy and governance. So again, in terms of GDPR, it tells me it's partially compliant. In terms of the EU AI Act, perhaps unclear. There's discrepancies identified about using ChatGPT. And the last one I just want to show you before we close out is a tool that I built, which allows educators try and determine whether an assessment that they have is likely to be prone to misuse by students by generative AI. And again, this is freely available. Feel free to use this if you wish. So if I go through this really, really quickly, and I'll try and create the worst possible assignment. I'll say I'm going to call it biology. It's worth 50%. It is in a science area. So the next thing it asks me is, what are the things that I'm assessing in this assessment? I'm assessing knowledge and comprehension. I'm assessing critical analysis, and I'm assessing reflective practice and metacognition. Assessment task, I could just say, and this again is as bad as it gets, write an essay on DNA. That's pretty bad. I'll just say 2,000 words. That's as bad as it gets. So hopefully this will give quite a bad report for me. The assessment format is an essay. I want it as a PDF. I'm giving students 2 weeks to complete this. Is it invigilated? It's not. Is it an open book assessment? It's not. Are students permitted to use AI tools? No. Have you aligned this with the AI assessment scale? Nope. I'll go next. Does it require personal reflection? Nope. Require use of recent niche or course materials? Nope. Involves a live component? Nope. Is the assessment process based? It's not. So again, generating a report. And you'd like to think, because this is so bad, that it would give me quite a poor report. Obviously, with your own assessments, which are much more well designed, you can see I've scored badly here, 30%, that there's significant opportunities for redesigning. It goes through the learning outcomes and how poor they are: moderate, low, none. And then it gives me an imaginative alternative assessment proposal. Why don't you take that essay that you were going to give your students, and instead of that, here's another example of something you could do for the assessment. It says that I've got high vulnerability in this assessment type, as you'd expect. In terms of invigilation and specific content, it's not process-based, so it's quite bad. And it also gives me an example here of what students would do. Students, all they would have to do is go to a tool like ChatGPT or Claude, and this is the prompt the students would put in. Act as a university student, write this essay, answering the brief, and it illustrates to me how badly designed that essay is. So those are three tools that I thought might be useful for you to consider. I'm more than happy to make those available to people. Other tools that we won't get a chance to look at, but tools that I use quite a bit. Again, they're all hyperlinked here if you want to play with them at any time. And some guiding signposts to close out. I would suggest that as educators, we could be overwhelmed by the amount of tools that we have. Just one tool at a time. Maybe one tool is enough for you if you're getting very good at using Claude or Notebook LM or whatever it might be. To know that when you're using AI, that the buck stops with you. In other words, you are ultimately responsible. I would strongly suggest that we keep the teachers and the educators first, and the technology is wonderful, but make sure that that's secondary to what we do. To be open-minded and to learn from others is also so important. And communities like what we're doing this morning, I think is invaluable, because we're going to hear from other experts as well in the field and the kinds of work that they're doing. So learning from others, I think, in this new and evolving world is crucial. And in terms of learning and your work practices, use AI to augment what you do. Don't necessarily use it to replace what you do. This is a shameless plug. I produce a newsletter every 2 weeks called AI Simplified for Educators. The link is there if anyone would like to subscribe to it. And I share some other tools and work practices as well. And just to thank you, I think we're just past 20 past, Tina. So I'd like to thank you for allowing me to share some of my musings on generative AI, and more than happy to take some questions if you have any, and looking forward to hearing the other speakers as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You had very interesting practical applications for teachers as well. So now we have a little time for questions and comments. Eva, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Very, very interesting and useful presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just had this kind of question that how do you promote the use of AI in MTU? Do you have some kind of pedagogical program for the teachers, and how many of your teachers are already using it, constantly in their teaching?
Yeah, it's a great
information.
It's a great question, Eva. What we've decided to do, we have recently formed a new university structure. We've got 5 faculties. So what I planned over the last 2 semesters, the first semester we went faculty by faculty. So we worked with science faculty, then we went to engineering, then we went to creative arts, then we went to business and so on. And we worked specifically with the academics and with the learning developers in each faculty, trying to figure out what the specific challenges were for them in their discipline, because every discipline will be affected differently by generative AI. So it was very useful to work faculty by faculty rather than having a generic training session for the university. We've developed a series of resources and tools and advice and guidance for each faculty, which is largely based on the Higher Education Authority document that I shared in that presentation. A lot of the principles built into that would be similar to the principles that we're building into the training programs for our staff. And we're in the process of writing a policy for generative AI use, which is now going to be very much mirrored by what the Higher Education Authority has prepared for us. So we do it on a faculty by faculty basis. That's how we're currently managing it in teaching and learning.
Thank you. That sounds excellent.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments? You can also write in the chat, of course.
I am glad that we share the same view in certain things. And actually, in the continuation, I will speak a little bit of where to use it and where to not use it also. So really good presentation.
Thank you, Adrian. Yeah, and that's one of the things we're all struggling with, I think, is to try and figure out when AI is going to be useful to us and how can we use it to improve our work practices, and something students need to be very much trained on as well. Thank you. I'm just going to put a copy of the talk in the chat. If anybody wants to flick through the slides and click on any of those links in their own time, feel free to do that.
Thank you very much. I'm sure many people are interested in the links, especially. Okay, thank you, Jim. And now, Aitor, you will carry on with the same topic. So Aitor comes from University of Skövde from Sweden. And he's going to talk about AI from a concept to student use.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tina. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yeah, can see it, Adrian.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so my name is Aitor. As Tina said, I come from the University of Skövde, and I am a postdoctoral researcher that I have been collaborating a little bit with Ingenium, and I have been quite a bit into AI inside the projects of BFKDO, Litmus, and Timely too. And I use this mainly in research, but I also use it in education. So today I'm going to be showing some examples and also how I suggest the students to use AI. So I will do a very fast introduction, then what AI can and cannot do. And then I will go from easier levels of use of existing AI to creating AI tools in existing frameworks, to later implement them in your own tools, and finally to running them integrated in your operative system and using local LLMs. I also have a point for other AIs, but I don't know if we will have enough time. So in that case, we can leave that for the future. So during this presentation, when I mention AI, since AI is such a big field, I will be using it to refer to large language models, and mainly to the ones that we know the best nowadays. So those as GPT, Claude, and Gemini, for example. So one thing I have realized in the last 2 years is that AI has become an everyday tool in a very short time. And as you mentioned before, Jim, it has have very big acceptance. At the same time, there has been almost no judgment of what it can and cannot do. And this actually goes very, very far on students because they tend to trust AI over their own skills. And I have thought for a long time that there is a need to teach what AI can and cannot do to the students. So we ensure from the beginning that they are using it for the proper tasks. So one thing is that in this presentation, I will use 3 definitions of process, practice, and art. These are just some terminologies I found in some literature. I know we all have different terminology, so please don't judge me for this. But I wanted to explain very fast that a process is usually something that has a direct input and a direct output. They are determined. So for example, 1 + 1 = 2. And then in coding, for example, it could be the typical hello world. In practice, what we have is an input that can be direct and can be fuzzy at the same time. And then we have an output that is just one solution. So in this case, it could be driving, where there are many variables that could be changing around, but the output is going from A to B. And then we have art, where both the input and also the output are fuzzy. It's not possible to define them properly. And that will be the case of, for example, writing, but we could also bring it to taking care of someone. We could make it into presenting, or in general, networking and socializing. So here is where I draw a line and where I say, from this point, AI always tries to do what it is incapable of. So it will always try its best to fulfill your queries, but it will not be able to do it. So taking the example of writing, if we divide it into different tasks, we can actually divide those that are still art, but we can keep those that are practice and process into the AI. So for example, we can provide the content and the style, and at the same time, we could ask the AI to help us writing correctly. So fixing typos, which will be a process, and then syntax and text flow, which will be more of a practice. And this is one way of using AI, because for example, this presentation, I did it in a different manner. And this was my presentation before I told the AI to fix it for the style. However, all the content was still the content I created myself. So the next step, I'm starting from more beginner-friendly. I like to explain how it is to use existing AI. And on the left, there are some prompts of what it could be a student or a person starting to use AI. And this was for a project application for Horizon. So in this case, this was the prompt I used on the left, write a contribution of Volvo construction equipment in project application style about the use of DHM tools. Also add physiological stress and fatigue. On the right, I did this other prompt where I provided context. And context is exactly what it drives an AI. So all that content that we have ourselves and all that knowledge, we really need to reflect it in the prompt. And I have a rule of thumb where I don't accept an output of an AI that is longer than my prompt. So here we can see the result of this prompt. And here I said, this last part should be minimal, the physiological stress. And here we can see that, for example, in the short prompt, although it had some context of previous conversations, it made a principal thing, the physiological stress and fatigue modeling, while here you will need to actually read everything, but it goes a little bit inside the text and together with the rest of the goals. So this was in order to obtain better quality. Another way to work in these applications and provide this context without actually having to provide it all the time is by creating, for example, projects. And this is available in many of the AI tools that we are using nowadays. So here you can see how I created a folder in order to make this project application. And I provided successful project applications, and I provided my own documents filled with all the information, plus also the project application from the website. And then I used this project continuously in order to help me raise the quality of the application. Another thing that is really important is to know what your AI knows about you. And if you want to increase the quality of the output, although we need to be careful with the privacy, we can actually check in, for example, ChatGPT in settings. We can go down into memory, manage, and we can see our saved memories. We can delete them, we can modify them, and we can also bring them to different tools. So for example, if I would like to move from ChatGPT to Claude, I could extract all this information and I could change tool. And since we are changing tools so fast nowadays, this is a really good technique to keep all that information running so that you can speak with the same AI, but in different platforms in the end. And then one way that I have been helping students with, and this is a small example, is by creating GPTs. So you can create your own GPT and you can provide it a name, a description, and then you can provide instructions and knowledge. So in this case, I have created one. This is just for fun, and you can either scan the QR or you can click on the link or copy the link. This one actually is just me at the end of my PhD thesis when I completed it. So I loaded all these theses, and it's a GPT really obsessed with my thesis. So whatever you ask to it, it will always speak in terminology of my thesis and bring it to my topic instead. This is a fun example, but I have also provided this kind of GPTs for different simulation tools and also for different writing specialists to students. And the next step will be to implement these APIs in your tools. If you want to actually take the best out of them, you can connect them. This requires a little bit more technical experience or asking an AI to help you with the technical part. But in this case, what we have is a simulation tool which has a manual of 1,300 pages, and my students can barely get anything from those manuals nowadays. They are too complicated. So what I did, it was to integrate a button that just says AI. And in this case, when we click on it, we get this window. So I could actually say, how can I set up a grip for mannequins? And it will classify my requests, and then it will actually request, in this case, an expert, and will explain to me directly step by step how to do those tasks. So in this case, I'm just asking for some knowledge on how to do it myself. You see that we get this information. The best is that you can also ask to it in Spanish. And in this case, I will speak to it in Spanish. You could also use any other language, since this is calling DeepSeek. And it's going to be able to evaluate our task. So if we play this simulation, we will see that the people need to grab this object, and we have different people. So I'm going to ask in Spanish, which one of these people are suffering the most? And as you see, I wrote in Spanish, and now it understands that it needs to analyze the scene. So it will evaluate each one of the mannequins, and it will try to calculate which one is the one suffering the most. In my case, I work in ergonomics, so it will probably use those methods such as ruler and rebab, and then look directly at the joint angles. And this is a task that the students always struggle with, because it takes a lot of time, but also a lot of knowledge. So they can initially play with this, see what is the output of this tool, and then they can try to replicate it by actually creating the proper graphs and looking at the numbers. So in this case, it said that the mannequin that was suffering the most, it was the smallest female. And in this case, it was because she has to raise the arm higher. So it is a fast way to integrate with these simulation tools. Now I will continue with the presentation, and the next step is use AI integrated in your operative system. So one thing I struggle with is presenting very complex information to students. And the other day, a friend came to me and said, I need to explain fractals to mathematics students for the first time, and it is very complicated. So I said to him, why don't you create a website for it? So I logged inside my computer and I have prepared a prompt that says make a student beginner friendly website, and I have asked it to make it fast so we can actually do it on time. And I will let it pro will be accepting the permissions. We will continue with that. I have recommended could be very helpful. The models locally require much from your computer, so you are able to the privacy issues completely disappear. You can run all this channel so that we can run in parallel here, and this is running directly inside my computer. So I can speak with it as you can see, it works quite fast nowadays. So this is the latest Google Gemma 4, and it is possible to run it on a not so expensive laptop, in this case a 19,000 crowns laptop. And as you can see, it is perfectly capable and quite near ChatGPT 3.5 in this case. You don't need to pay for this, you can run it in your computer, and it doesn't break any privacy. Also, if you need to connect it to tools, for example, you will not be leaking any data from students, and you will not be leaking any data from any company. So I am recently recommending a lot to use this, and there are also opportunities to connect it to your software by using, for example, Aider and Ollama, which are very recommended. And finally, while our website is getting ready, I wanted to show to you that we are also, that we are also using AI for other for other tasks. And in this case, this is a platform I have created myself called EasyErgo, where we can predict the skeleton and the mesh of a person, and we can perform ergonomics evaluations of them. So in this case, users do not even need to run these models locally, and they can, for example, evaluate ergonomics directly themselves. Here I have a couple of examples, but I wanted to just show to you this one in here, where we can also evaluate, for example, people doing parkour. It is a very fast tool, and these kind of models are also very helpful. So these are expert models that you can run for different tasks, and in my case, it's ergonomics. So finally, we have now the website almost ready, and once it's ready, I will be showing it to you. Here you have it. So this website we have created while we were presenting. This is a very fast explanation of what is a fractal. And then we have some demonstrator that we have just generated. So we can re-render it for the different iterations of the fractals. It is a very fast and easy tool to prepare presentations for students, where you can modify, for example, all the text and directly have something really fast. I always struggle with finding the proper demonstrators to show students, and I always struggle having time to prepare them. So these kind of tools can help us to improve this and make it much faster. So thank you very much for joining today's presentation. And if you have any questions, please contact me anytime.
Okay, thank you so much. And now we still have time for discussion and questions. Lots of applause you get. Eva, please.
Thank you. Sorry for being active. It was a great presentation, but I would like to pose the same question to you too, that how has the University of Skövde promote the use of the AI tools among the teachers and the staff?
Yeah, I think at the moment we do not have a proper structure defined of how we are going to be promoting it. There is a thought and a process of preparing an expert group at the moment so that they can guide the rest of the teachers. I would really like that idea, and I would love it to happen and to even be part of it. I think we might be missing a lot of potential if we are not using all these tools. So I believe that we should definitely show it and also have it locally, avoid all privacy issues, and then load it with our data so it becomes an expert that it can really help us every day.
Thank you.
Do you have any more questions? I thought if you can leave your contact details to the chat, if somebody's interested,
definitely.
they can contact you. I think we can move on to our third presentation, which sounds very interesting, tracking algorithms for unmanned aerial vehicles. So Dan, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you hear me and see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
everything's fine.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. And let's start the presentation. Good afternoon, distinguished guest. I am pleased to send you a warm welcome from Iași, Romania. And in the following, I will begin my presentation with a short introduction to the topic and the context of this presentation. Next, I will present the problem, followed by my solution, and in the end, the conclusion will be presented. So, the object of this talk is to present a highly robust algorithm for detection of the object which was extended to the UAV tracking application. Even if we want to detect humans, cars, drones, other objects, and so on, we'll certainly encounter errors. But there are cases where detection error is undesirable. And we'll focus primarily to present, we'll focus the presentation on the development process of a novel algorithm, which is robust as possible from this point of view. So let's start the story. 2 years ago, I noticed that low-cost UAV systems are highly effective, and the defensive process against them are very challenging. To protect from such system, there are two options: air defense and jamming system. First, the use of air defensing system against loitering munition is very expensive. Here is an image showing the cost of defending based on missile versus loitering munition. You can see that the difference in price is huge. But you'll see, but you'll say something like, stop right now, we're in 2026. And of course, right now, there are other better solutions to do this. Okay, maybe not. But accordingly to a report presented in the newspaper The Times, published on March 17, 2026, Ukrainian instructors expressed shock seeing the inefficient air defense tactic used by American and Gulf allies. which use up to 8 Patriot missiles to take down a single drone. So the second approach is based on electronic warfare equipment, can jam the command and or the drone video link up to the point of losing these feeds. However, this approach is no longer feasible. For example, the last generation of Lancet is equipped with NVIDIA Jetson module, and as a direct result, the automatic target acquisition and control system is used to hit the target during the last part of the drone flight. Another development started in mid-2024 when the fiber optic drone appears, like in this video. This type of UAV is impossible to jam and very difficult to detect, and has other advantages such as higher data rates and lower communication power requirements. Okay, solution is to develop an UAV system able to protect an area autonomously, to detect and track the target, follow them, and finally crash into them. In the left, you have a first implementation of the system, and in the right, a second implementation, a more, let's say, raffinate one. In order to solve the UAV control problem, there are several guidance laws that can be applied, but what is more important is a requirement to detect and track the target on each frame without any kind of error. So this is a little bit a challenging request. To understand better the different source of tracking error, first we must look on which device the tracking algorithm is running. In my case, it was a AMD Kria robotic kit, which is a core of the developed drone. This system is named a companion computer, which is a companion to the flight management unit, and also what is in the red dash line is a UAV system, and in the green dash line is the ground station. And also we have several type of links, video links or RC radio command links, telemetry links that we can interrogate or set the different parameters of the drone, and in the end we have a debug link. Okay. The companion computer is mainly a system on a chip, which is combined CPU and a FPGA in a single device. The FPGA unit is named here DPU, Deep Neural Network Processing Unit, and it's a very powerful device. To have an idea, I was able to run a YOLO deep learning network, which had 142 layers and 36 million of parameters. And for my surprising, there was still free space left in the FPGA. Okay, the first approach was to use a YOLO neural network, but we had a specific set of errors generated by the process of running this network on the DPU unit. First, we use a smaller neural network, not the full version, some kind of teeny or nano YOLO model. Second, in order to be able to run the YOLO model into the DPU unit, a conversion process was used in order to have the Keras model. But here, several type of layers like Swiss, Mish, and Lambda were not supported by the DPU. I think right now it's possible that that DPU unit to be able to support this. But at that point, we must modify the neural network structure and to replace in the neural architecture these layers. And of course, this generate lower performances. And in the end, the model must be quantized and this process lower further the performances. Okay, after the training of the YOLO model, the precision was starting from 95 to 97 for drone, which are our target, and goes up to 81 to 91 for planes. Here, the lower detection precision for planes was mainly generated by a small number of them. Okay, at this point, you can see that we'll have frame on which error will appear due to the neural model performances that are not 100%. But as you know, no detection algorithm can reach 100% performances. And we have additional error generated by running the model on the DPU unit as we presented above. So a better solution must be found. To improve the detection rate, a correlation tracking algorithm was also used. This correlation tracking algorithm is based on the implementation of the team of DenGen, and it was accurate, tracking object in real time, and what is more important for us, with a significant scale variation. The main idea was very simple. When YOLO cannot detect the UAV, the correlation tracking algorithm take over the operation based as input on the YOLO last correct detection. So let's see how this algorithm performs. In the left upper part, is presented the result obtained by the YOLO directly after the training process. In the right upper part are the result obtained by YOLO running on the DPU unit. And in the down part are the results obtained by YOLO and CTIA algorithm. You'll see that on blue will be YOLO, and in the red will be the results, the bounding box detected by correlation tracking algorithm. Okay, a little bit, wait on minutes to show you something very interesting. Okay. Okay, the first situation. Here you can see that a very interesting behavior and let's say a little bit unexpected. Whereas the YOLO is unable to detect the drone, but the converted version of it can do this task without any kind of problem. And we have here blue bounded boxes that represent the YOLO detection. Of course, this is more than an exception. If we go a little bit further, you'll see here a second behavior. And in this case, you'll see that the YOLO that was converted to the DPO is unable to detect the drone. And the original YOLO model is able. And in this case, the correlation tracking algorithm take the detection job and get a very good detection. So all is okay, but the real problem is not here. It's not in this part of the trajectory. One moment, you'll see. Okay, let's stop here. And you will see that in the moment when the drone will get this kind of trajectory, the YOLO algorithm is unable to detect the UAV system over 36 consecutive frames. Of course, this happens because we have a complex behavior. We go from the sky to the hill, and after that to the house, and after that to the field. And more of that, we have a variability in the size of the UAV system as this system is approached to the recording point. And we have a fluctuation in the UAV speed and trajectory. One moment. Okay, let's start. So you see blue, that means YOLO detection, red, CTA detection, correlation tracking algorithm detection, and you'll see in right this moment that the drone is in this position and the detection is in this position. So the red rectangle does not follow the drone. So based on combination of between yellow and CTI, correlated tracking algorithm, we have an improvement, but we are unable to solve the problem completely. In the following, we, in order to solve the problem, we use a Kalman filter also. The idea is very easy. The Kalman filter will continuously track the UAV even when the yellow and CTI detection fails. And based on the past UAV estimation of the position and the velocity, the algorithm can accurately predict its position in the following frame. So when the YOLO cannot detect the UAV, the correlation tracking algorithm takes over the operation based on the YOLO last correct detection, but only for 9 consecutive frames. If the YOLO algorithm fails to detect the object, the UAV system, for more than 9 consecutive frames, the Kalman filter will initiate the drone tracking operation on all the subsequent frames. So in all the frames when the YOLO and correlation tracking algorithm has detection, the Kalman filter runs both stages, the prediction and the update, and in all other frames, only the prediction step is active. In the end, the YOLO and the correlation tracking algorithm had work on different, work in the same time, but on different devices. The CTA and the Kalman on the CPU, and the YOLO algorithm on the DPU unit, Deep Neural Network Processing Unit. So let's see what are the performances in this case. In the similar like in the previous presentation, the upper part, we have the same video, but in the bottom left, we have YOLO and CTA, YOLO and Kalman in the middle, and the new algorithm in the right part. So in the first part of the trajectory, one moment. You'll see that when the YOLO fails the detection, the CTA and the Kalman filters can compensate with any kind of problem. But the fun part starts in the second part of the UAV trajectory, and you'll see that we have blue here, red, blue, red, CTA, red, red, and now we go to the Kalman filter. And what is interesting to see is that we compare the results between the YOLO and CTA. You'll see that the drone is here and the detection is here. It's far away from the UAV position. The same, the drone is here and the position of the bounded box is here. In our case, the drone is in this place and the bounding box is around it. But you'll see that in the new algorithm, there is a little bias between the real position and the drone position. And I think these are generated mainly by the fact we have a rotation and we use a linear Kalman filter. And each time when we have a rotation, we have cosinus, sinus, and so on. And a nonlinear filter will be more appropriate in this case. Okay, so from all of this video, we can see that the new algorithm is clear better than the YOLO and any binary combination between YOLO and CTA and Kalman. Okay, all of these results are on the single test video. Now we'll go to the numerical value on all the videos that are used in the test database. So what you can see that mainly the mean average precision goes from 63 to 90. That is a big step. And also the precision and recall are around 99%. But what is more important for us is that the mean distance between the center of the real UAV system and the center of the bounding boxes, of one of the bounding box, will go from 700 to 11. These are the pixels. So you'll see that the results are, from my point of view, very, very good. In the end, I want to point you to another very interesting fact. All the components of this UAV system are open source. The flight controller units, the autopilot, the MAVLink, and so on. Also, the AMD robotic starter kit is built on the open source friendly ecosystem based on ROS, Robotic Operating System 2, and the Ubuntu Linux. And of course, the system on chip itself is proprietary, but other hardware components like PCB are open source. Okay, in the end, if you want to see different kind of tips and tricks in how to implement, how to convert the model to run on DPU, how to connect the companion computer with the flight management unit, and so on. You have on a link on the Hexter where all of these processes are presented in a more good way. We have also an academic research paper if you want something like this. And in the case when you want to use our database in your research, you have a link here, and also a full version of the video that are presented or are on my hobby channel and on my official channel, YouTube official channel. Of course, I'll put all this information into the chat. If you want, you can take it from there and to use it. In the end, thank you very much for your presentation, for be able to have the patience to stay here. And if you have any kind of question, please, I will be happy to answer to them.
Thank you very much. So now we have some time for questions.
Yeah,
Aitor.
I have a small question. With this YOLO approach, you obtain the 2D positioning.
Yes.
Are you also calculating the depth or the distance to that object?
No, in our case was not required that, because we went to our UAV system to go to the, let's say, rogue UAV system and to smash on them. And from our point of view, what was interesting for us was to have only the coordinated center of that UAV system. But from one image, there are a neuronal model that can estimate the depth information, and this information can be done, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Yes, now you can find all the links in the chat for the additional information.
Our system was presented into the international competition organized by AMD, and we took the first place there. We have a picture to prove that. Okay.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. So before you go, thank you, presenters. Very interesting topic, and also our audience today. And I would like to remind you of our last Staff Academy webinar in May, the 5th of May. And our theme and topic will be cooperation and co-creation within our university community. Thank you very much.